Good morrow, everyone. Welcome to Game Shields. I've got a little video here for you today. Today, Game Shields is going to look at the best games of the last generation. I'm going to apologise up front to those of you who may be of the Xbox persuasion. I'm going to be looking through the PlayStation 4 list here on OpenCritic and just going through year by year, having a look and see what the best games of last generation actually were. I do have a few Xbox picks, but obviously due to Microsoft's kind of lack of first-party output, unfortunately there's not that many, or it's going to be multi-platform. So that's why I'm going to look at the PS4 list, but I will bring out some Xbox stuff from time to time. I'm recording this actually on the day of the launch of the Xbox Series X, and the PlayStation 5 will be out in just a few days' time in North America and in Europe next week. So it's quite a poignant time, I think, to look back on last generation. So amazingly, last generation actually started all the way back in 2013, which is kind of crazy thinking about it right now. That's a whole just over 7 years away from where we are. It wasn't the best launch for both consoles. Xbox's kind of big hitters was Dead Rising and Rise: Son of Rome. Maybe the less said about those, the better. On the PS4 side, it wasn't a great deal better. Killzone Shadowfall was there, which I thought was a lovely looking game at the time, but it didn't really hold much in terms of quality. And then you had little game Resogun, which was probably the pick of the bunch for the PlayStation 4. My personal favourite pick, though, back in the day, and the game that probably took the most of my time, was arguably, you could call it a PS3 game really, or an Xbox 360 game. That was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. As you can see on OpenCritic, got 85 at the time. That, for me, in that year, was the game I probably played the most of, but that probably says more about the year itself, to be honest with you, rather than the actual quality of that product. I'm a bit of a fan of the Assassin's Creed games anyway. Let's move on, though, as we should. Let's go to 2014. 2014. Now, obviously, on OpenCritic here, we've got a couple of old games, what I would consider old games up there. You've obviously got GTA 5, which was remastered, The Last of Us, which was remastered, and it wasn't a great year as far as I'm concerned. The two that were kind of picked out by most of the media outlets for Game of the Year back in 2015 was Dragon Age Inquisition and also the Mordor game Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. That was the two that was kind of picked. I personally, for this year, didn't really have a favourite. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't really play too many games this year. Played a lot of old ones, I guess. I did play through GTA 5 and The Last of Us remastered. But yeah, 2015 was a year of slim pickings. Not really much there, if I'm honest. I must say, Velocity 2X down the bottom there, you'll see. That was a good little game, although I did play the majority of that on my Vita. 2015 being the year where we still had handhelds. Just about. The 3DS and the Vita was still kicking about then. But let's move on. Sorry, I got that wrong. 2014. Now we're going to go to 2015, which was a better year. It was definitely a better year. There we go. You do find there are some strange games that are on the top of some of these lists. Just through they might have not many reviews, usually, or a dedicated fan base or whatever takes them to the top. But despite the fact we have again some kind of old games, remastered games popping up this list here in Journey, there's a few big hitters there. You've obviously got The Witcher 3, which is beloved by so many people. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Bloodborne, of course, Shovel Knight, Bastion, and down the bottom there you can see Fallout 4. So out of this list, for me personally, I put the most amount of hours into both Fallout 4 and Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Fallout 4 was definitely flawed. It wasn't an amazing Fallout game. Fallout 3 was much better, and I'm sure the people who played the first couple of Fallout games would say that those games were even better. But I unfortunately have never played the first couple. I loved 3. I love New Vegas. New Vegas is absolutely brilliant. Fallout 4 just lacked that je ne sais quoi. It lacked that something. It still had me going for hours and hours and hours. I still enjoyed playing it, but I feel like sometimes it was kind of out of habit rather than an insistence on wanting to do it and it being a good game. Which probably shows the flaws in how I play video games. Sometimes I just play them because it's just a habit. But yeah, Fallout 4 it's still a good game, but not to the heights of some of the others. For me personally, in 2015, the best game of that year was Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. I'll start with why The Witcher 3 wasn't. I just didn't get on with The Witcher 3. I recently completed The Witcher 3, finally, after a number of years. And I don't know what it is, but that game has just never clicked with me the way that it probably should have done. And I usually love those type of games. I struggled with the controls. I felt I didn't control quite right. Some of the quests were a bit long. I wasn't a big fan of the combat. It was just something. It just never clicked for me. But it's good to see it click for so many other people. Whereas in terms of gameplay, I don't think there is a game whose gameplay is better than Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, and I guess I'd throw in Ground Zeroes as well. This is pretty much the same thing. I just thought the game was absolutely brilliant from start to finish. Story-wise, very weak. It was the weakest narrative of all the Metal Gear Solid games. But I thought it was just fantastic the way you could just do so many things and wind up the guards and just play with them and just have fun. It was, I think it was described before it came out as a stealth sandbox, and it definitely was. And I had so much fun. I got the platinum on it, and I think I was well over 200 hours by the time I was finished with that. Bloodborne, of course, is there as well, but those games, for whatever reason, again, just don't jive with me at all. I own Bloodborne. I've owned Bloodborne for years, and at some point I will play it. I have recently installed it, and I'm probably going to play it on my PS5. It might be one of the first games I play on PS5, so I will get there. I'm determined at some point to enjoy those games. Maybe that will be soon, but I can appreciate why a lot of people like it. Let's move on in time, shall we? 2015 was a good year for video games. Just quickly on 2015 as well, Xbox also brought out Ori and the Blind Forest, which is probably one of the best Xbox games. I don't think it's technically a first-party Xbox game, but certainly a highlight for the Xbox One, and there wasn't many of those in the early years. So yeah, let's move on. 2016. We're cooking again here. We're cooking again. I won't spend too long on this one, but obviously Uncharted 4: A Thief's End was a nice send-off for Nathan Drake. Well, is it a send-off? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see moving forward. But that was a lovely game, a well-crafted Naughty Dog masterpiece. Overwatch, of course, is there as well. That was a bit of a phenomenon when it came out in the summer during that year. Dark Souls 3 as well. Probably didn't hit the heights of Bloodborne, but it was still there. Before I come on to my favourite game of this particular year, I have to say Res Infinite, I feel, was the first game in VR that made me sit up and take notice. I thought Res Infinite is... The original Res that came out on the Dreamcast is criminally underrated. And to see that repurposed into a VR game, I thought was brilliant. For me, it's one of the best VR games, if not the best VR game. And if I was reviewing it at the time, I certainly would have given it a 10 out of 10. I think it redefines video games almost in a way that Mario 64 did back in the day. Not quite to that level, but if you haven't played Res Infinite on VR and you've got the opportunity, you have a VR headset, make sure you do it. It's absolutely brilliant. But my game of the year for this year, there's no doubt about it, and I don't know why it's sitting so low on Open Critics list, Titanfall 2. What a game. Titanfall 2 was fantastic. I loved the original, which came out on Xbox One, but Titanfall 2 was everything I wanted in a video game at the time. It combined first-person shooting with insane agility, movement. It was just absolutely fantastic, and I think it's one of the highlights of the generation. It's such a brilliant game, and obviously that's now kind of amalgamated into what we see as Apex Legends these days. But my God, what I would give to see a Titanfall 3 one day. Truly a special game, Titanfall 3. Titanfall 2. I'm wishing for things to happen that haven't happened yet. Let's move on in the time machine. 2017. Persona 5 sits at the top of that list, and rightly so. Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, I've played through both of them, are outstanding JRPGs, arguably the best JRPGs ever made. There's just something about those games that just connects with you emotionally. you enjoy being you love your characters, the friends that are around you. The battles are epic. Your adversaries are they're twisted. They have motive, and it's just a genuine pleasure to play those games. Some of it's a bit long in the tooth. There's no doubt about that, but they're more than games. The Persona games, they become a part of your life, and Persona 5 was certainly that. And I agree with Open Critic; it was the best game out of PlayStation and Xbox anyway for that year. Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild probably just about tops it, but we'll leave Nintendo for now. Other games of note in there, NiER Automata was a brilliant game with story and a narrative that goes far beyond what most other games do. Horizon Zero Dawn was a game that I did enjoy, but as I mentioned, Breath of the Wild, which came out I think just a couple of weeks after it, kind of killed that one for me. Going from Breath of the Wild, where you could climb anywhere, go anywhere, to Horizon Zero Dawn, where the smallest kind of mountain I couldn't get through, was so frustrating. But I think that's one of those games where you look at it and you think, do you know what? The sequel's going to be 10 times better. I think we had a lot of games this generation where the first game would come out and it would be good, but you just know the next one, they're going to iterate on it and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And a quick mention for Sonic Mania down the bottom there. It turns out that you needed a developer other than Sonic Team to bring back Sonic in the best kind of way. Let's move on, shall we? 2018. Here we go. Quick mention for the Xbox. Forza Horizon 4 came out in 2018. I personally don't play many racing games. I do like the F1 games. But I thought Forza Horizon 4, and maybe it was its setting in the UK and in particular Scotland, where I'm from, really appealed to me. And I just thought it was lovely driving around there. And it was such a fascinating and just fun game, just to hop in every so often. But looking back here, the two heavy hitters, there's no doubt about it, it's Red Dead Redemption 2 and God of War. Me personally, I prefer God of War. Again, I just thought everything came together beautifully in God of War, and it didn't overstay its welcome, unlike Red Dead Redemption 2, which just kept going on and on and on and on, especially the epilogue in particular, which went on for hours. But I thought God of War is one of those games that was the perfect length. Great story, fantastic combat, and you can't underestimate the fact that they reinvented the entire series. Before God of War, that series was on its death knell. It really was. And I'm stunned at what Corey Barlog and the team at Sony Santa Monica are able to do. I remember playing God of War Ascension on the PS3, and I was thinking, well, this is it for this series. This is going to go the way of Killzone and Resistance, and nope, they've literally brought it back from the dead. And obviously Kratos himself has come back from the dead a few times, if memory serves me right. So I know it was a brilliant game, and I'm so excited for the sequel. The sequel is going to be absolutely brilliant. Well, I hope so anyway. Let's move on. 2019. Again, a quick shout out to the Xbox One, just very, very quickly, and Microsoft. Gears of War 5 for you old people. Again, I loved Gears. I've always loved Gears, and I thought Gears 5 was absolutely brilliant. Much better than Gears 4, and much better than Halo 5 as well, which I didn't mention earlier. I just thought Gears 5 was just a level above, and it was more akin to a kind of Naughty Dog style of game where it had good narrative, good combat, good pacing. There's one particular section in the desert which probably went on a little bit too long, but I thought it was a good stab, and I'm excited to see what happens with Gears 6. Obviously, that's a story that will go on. Going back to this though, 2019, and it's strange because my favourite game of 2019 is the one that's first here on Open Critic, and yet it's a game that obviously has its roots way back in 1998, 1999, something like that. But the Resident Evil 2 remake was brilliant. Everything you wanted and more was there. Everything looked fantastic. It was weird. It was kind of as you remember it, but not, because obviously everything's updated. But it was a brilliant way of remastering it and reinvigorating Resident Evil, much as Resident Evil 7 did a couple of years prior to that, but just in a different way. Obviously, we've had Resident Evil 3 this year, which its length was not great, if I'm honest. But I'm excited to see what they can remake next. Not really too many other standouts from last year, really, was there? Obviously Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Obviously, again, From Software people will absolutely love that. Outer Wilds, yes. Let's talk about Outer Wilds. That is a game that, for me anyway, came out of nowhere. If truth be told, I didn't know anything about the game. I played the game, and you're in this little solar system, and it's just a case of just go explore. And games that do that and it works are brilliant. It's just fantastic. And Outer Wilds is a game that if you haven't already played, you really should do. But don't go and research anything. Just play the game, hop in your spaceship, explore, and the mystery will become clear. That's 2019. I'll move on very quickly to 2020. The year before, or the year of, the new consoles, and the last year of this generation. A couple of standouts for me personally. The Last of Us Part 2, of course, sequel to The Last of Us, both of which are two of my favourite games of all time. Well, I obviously won't go into spoiler territory here with The Last of Us Part 2, but what a game. A game that makes you think about the decisions and choices your character is making, and how you feel about that. Is usually a brilliant game, especially more so if perhaps you don't agree with some of the things that's going on. It makes you think, it gets you emotional, and it's also fun to play. And I'm hoping at some point they'll release the multiplayer factions for that, because the factions mode on the original Last of Us was brilliant. I loved that, so hopefully we'll see that at some point. It's not on this little list here, but Ghost of Tsushima is a standout for me as well. I struggled a little bit the opening hours of that to really get the grip of everything, but once I got lost in its world and its combat, it just all came together seamlessly. And Ghost of Tsushima is a game that I was thinking would probably be a solid 7 or 8, and by the time I was finished, it's more of a 9 or a 10 for me. The setting, the characters, the story, the ending. It was brilliantly realised, and I've been waiting all these years for an Assassin's Creed Samurai game, and then Sucker Punch go and make it for them. It was great to see. It really was great to see, and I love that game so much. So that's my two standouts really for 2020. I've obviously not played every single game on this list throughout the years of the generation, but I think I've got about over 350 games on the PS4. So, and obviously a quite high number on the Xbox as well. Although that's difficult to tell because of Game Pass now. But it's obviously loads, and I've wasted hundreds of hours, thousands of hours playing video games the last few years, and I don't regret anything. So I like to think I've got given you a bit of a decent overview of the best games of last generation. If I had to pick a few favourites, I'd say it's very, very difficult. Off the top of my head, we'll go Persona 5. We'll go Persona 5 Royal. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain. The Last of Us Part 2. God of War. And Titanfall 2. I'll probably change my mind on those 5 in about an hour or so. But right now, that's what I'm thinking. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what your favourite games of the last generation have been for PS4 or Xbox One in the comments below. I'll do a Nintendo one once it looks like we're going to get an upgraded Switch or a Switch 2 or a Switcheroo or whatever Nintendo are going to do over there. So I'm excited to do that because a lot of my favourite games are Nintendo games, but I just wanted to leave them off of this one just for now, especially on the eve of and launch of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, which I'm going to be covering moving forward. So thank you very much for your time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this video. As you can see, I'm a new channel, so I'm hoping to grow it, and I'm hoping to talk video games with you throughout the coming days, weeks, months, and years.